Hello, what's up YouTube? Photographer Ronix with another. In this tutorial, I want to show you how you can easily process or edit raw photos when it comes to using Capture One. So this is Capture One. I want to show you why I usually prefer to use Capture One to process raw files as opposed to Lightroom or even Camera Raw. So this tutorial is for Capture One, and if at all interested, you can simply download and pay for a license. If at all you want to get all the full features regarding Capture One. So right now this is the interface, and if at all you'd love the interface to look like mine, you can simply come to Window Workspace, then you come down to Migration, and you'll have your adjustments the way they are right here. So basically, when it comes to Capture One, the very first thing we tend to do, like in Photoshop, we also have layers within Capture One. So you can set, we have layers right here. So you can as well create a new layer and you play around with the opacity if at all you have overdone a given adjustment. So when it comes to Capture One and I want to process a raw file, the very first thing I'll put on is the exposure warning. So by the way, if at all you don't have any adjustment or you're missing out on any adjustment in your Capture One, simply right click anywhere within the adjustments and simply come to Add Tool, and you can add whichever tool you're lacking within your Capture One. So the very first thing I do when it comes to Capture One is first of all correcting the lighting and contrast issues regarding the image. So the exposure warning I turned on is going to simply make or add a red highlight on the areas that are clipping or the overexposed areas within the photo. So the very first thing I'm going to do is first of all taking care of the exposure and contrast issues to get the image right and properly exposed within this photo. So I'll simply come to the high dynamic range and take down my highlights to try and get rid of these overexposed highlights or clipping areas, and I'll basically do the same for the whites to counter that. And after I've done that, the next thing I'll do, I'll simply come to the saturation and bump it up a little bit because I prefer images to be having a little bit more of the contrast. So after this, I'm just going to come to my exposure and I'll simply drop down the exposure because I felt like the image was a little bit overexposed. So after correcting this, I'll come to my levels adjustments, and you can either add whites to your image or you can simply add blacks to the image. So since I just want to add contrast, I'll simply add blacks to the image by clicking and dragging this until when I feel like the image is having the contrast I need. So right now I'm done correcting the lighting and contrast issues. So the advantage when it comes to using Capture One is, like I said, the layers, and you can easily match or create even skin tone of your image and add a given color to the midtones, shadows, and the highlights. But before you do all this, make sure you do that on a separate layer. So in order to add it on a separate layer, simply come to the plus icon and you can right click and simply create a new field adjustment layer. So by new field adjustment layer, I want to be able to apply my color grading on a separate layer that is going to be filled, meaning the color grading is going to be affecting the overall image. So if at all I don't want color grade specific areas in this image, what I'll do basically, I'll simply get the eraser tool and rub away the color grading from those areas. So I've done the creation of the new field adjustment layer for my color grading. So I'll scroll down to where it says color editor. So in the color editor tool, you can see that we have basic, advanced, and skin tones. So for the skin tones that I want to make uniform, I'll simply come to the skin tone panel right here and get the eyedropper tool or the color picker tool. So as soon as I get that tool, I'm just going to zoom into the image. So what this tool is going to help me do is simply sampling the area of the skin that I want the rest of the skin to look like. You can see that we have a number of colors falling here and there. So we have some yellows, we have magentas, we have some oranges somewhere. So I just want to create a uniform skin color. So you have to left click on the color that you feel like the rest of the skin should be like or resemble. So I'm just going to sample from this area. And as soon as I click right there, you can see that is going to show me the range in which all the colors that fall within the area I've chosen. You can see that we have yellows, reds, oranges, and magentas plus some reds. So after that, I'm just going to come to my favorite tool in Capture One, which is the Uniformity tool. So within the Uniformity tool, basically what I'll do, I'll simply take up my hue, and as soon as I take up the hue slider, you can notice that the skin is turning out to look a little bit more on the even side. Then I'll simply come and take up the saturation. So these two sliders work hand in hand. So I'll just continue taking up the hue until when I feel like the skin is looking uniform and it is looking very nice and even. So I'll just take that up a little bit until when I feel like the skin is looking okay. So you have to play around with these two different sliders within the hue and saturation. So when you're done doing that, you can as well come to the amount. So amount, you can either add more saturation to the image by taking up the saturation slider, or you can simply take it down depending on the look you're going in for. So for my case, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of saturation to this image by taking up the saturation slider to add a tiny bit of saturation to the skin tone, and this looks okay to me. So you can either add a little bit of greens or magentas depending on the look that you have gotten from the image. So for my case, I'll just add, you can see you can either add reds to the skin tone by taking the hues down, or you can either add the opposite of red or magenta is green. You can either add greens to the image if at all you feel like you want to add greens. So for my case, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of the green color to this image, just a tiny bit, not too much. So this is what we have right now. So like I said, when it comes to capture, you can see that the skin is looking uniform and even, but it is as well changing the color of the lipstick or even the nails. So whichever color that falls within the range of the skin tone, that color is going to be changed when it comes to the uniformity slider, because that color belongs to the colors that fall within the skin tone, and we're going to be correcting that later on. So after that, we're simply going to come to the color balance, and like I said at the start of the tutorial, we can simply add a given color to either individual midtones, shadows, and the highlights. Then for my case, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come to the shadow area and simply, so when you come and select a given color, for example shadows, you can simply add a color by dragging this wheel all over the place, and you look for a color that should belong to a given shadow area for this case. So for my case, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of, so the closer the circle is to the edge, the more that color is going to be, and the closer it is to the center of the circle, the less saturated that color will be. So for my case, I'm just going to add a little bit of that kind of blue, and I'll simply come to the highlights, and I'm just going to add a given color to the highlights. So I'm just going to add just a tiny bit of color to my highlights. So I'm just going to choose a color. I think this color looks okay. So this color looks great for me, and it has cooled down the skin tones of the model. So after I have done this, I'm just going to come back to my basic color, and under basic, I'm just going to come to the oranges and play around with the lightness. So lightness is more of the luminosity values of a given color, how bright or how dark a given color should be. So I'm just going to come to the lightness and take the lightness down for my oranges. So the purpose of doing that is to add some tiny bit of contrast to the skin tone, and I'll simply take down the saturation because I feel like it was somehow a little bit overly saturated. So this is what we have been able to achieve, and let me show you a quick before and after for just this process. So you can see this is the after before and this is the after before after. Just look at how amazing the image has gotten to be or to look in this case. So after I have done this, like I said, there are some times when we want to eliminate colors from a given area, for example the lips. So I'll simply get the eraser tool, and that is going to help me eliminate colors from areas that I don't want to alter or change. So for my case, if at all I want to change the color of the lipstick, I'll simply activate my mask by pressing M. Remember, we created a new field adjustment layer, meaning it is affecting the overall image. So the mask is going to enable me rub or show me where I'm rubbing a given color grading. So I'll just rub it from the lips or the lipstick so that I don't change or alter the original color of the lips. So by pressing M once again, it is going to hide or deactivate the mask from affecting the image. So you can reveal back the original colors if at all you wish to. So after doing all this and after color grading, you can simply copy adjustments. So always copy adjustments before masking out, because it is going to copy that mask to the image that you're going to be color grading. So come to adjustments and copy the adjustments, and if at all you have another image that you would love to add the same color grading from the same shoot, simply come to adjustments and you can simply just going to choose the raw file. So after selecting the raw file right here, you can simply come to adjustments and simply apply the adjustment, and it's going to apply the same uniform color grading. You can see it is basically the same color grading, and you can go ahead and mask out the areas that you don't want to change or alter in the image. So this is how I do process images when it comes to Capture One. And if at all you have learned a thing or two from this tutorial, don't forget to like this video and don't forget to subscribe this channel. If at all you have been watching and you're not yet subscribed this channel, Ronix from Ronix Photography, thank you for watching. I'll see you in yet more amazing tutorials, and don't forget to keep practicing and also keep creating.